Live and recording.
All right, great. Thank you. Welcome everyone to the Capitalize Albany Corporation Board of Directors meeting. Today is Tuesday, February 17th. The first item on the agenda is the minutes of the regular board meeting, December 16th, 2025. I would entertain a motion. Motion. Second.
Second.
Tony? All in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The second item on the agenda is a presentation by a guest speaker. We have Bartley Costello and Len Dintello of the Albany Waterway Incorporated. So with that, I will turn it over.
Thank you, Heather. Where is it best for us to be standing?
Probably down here.
There's an owl. It will watch you wherever you are.
Okay. Okay, okay, good. So first of all, thank you for inviting us. Len and I are leaders of something called the Albany Waterway, Inc. We believe in Albany. We are a not-for-profit organization. We have tax-exempt status, and we are committed to downtown Albany. We have no paid staff, unfortunately. Lynn is a nationally recognized award-winning artist. He conceived of a rebirth of Albany. It's bold, it's impactful. Many of you have seen this. There's two projects, mainly projects that he recommended. One is uncovering historic Block 1. You can believe it, Block 1 for 200 years has been buried up by Central Warehouse. It's in the shadow of Central Warehouse. In Buffalo, they did something else. They opened up the western terminus of the Erie Canal, and it's now canal side. I don't know if anybody's been to Buffalo, but there's a lot of rock and roll going on, economic development, housing, and other things happening in Buffalo because of that. So Lynn has done, many of you know Lynn, you've seen his work, he is nationally recognized. Second, so Block 1 was one thing we looked at. Second thing was in front of SUNY Plaza. It's nice to see Sheila here. So in front of SUNY Plaza, we proposed another kind of way to bring the water in from the Hudson, and then a waterway to connect them about 18 feet wide, put water taxis, run it up to the north end of Albany. That would be good for visitors, residences, and everybody else. So those are the two things. I have been in Albany since I left the United States Navy in sunny Vietnam 55 years ago. I came here to go to law school. I've been a partner up at Hinman Straub, which is at 121 State Street. We've been there since 1985 when our client, Lou Swire, who some of you know, sold us the building because he wanted to build 80 State Street. And the governor's recent proposal that came out on Friday, it said the heart of downtown Albany is, anybody? State and Pearl. Okay? And on State and Pearl, there was a Neva roast beef and an Arthur Murray dance studio. And he came to us and said, help me figure out a way to get rid of that. So he built 80 State Street. And he wound up selling us 121 State Street. The Business Review said that Class A space in downtown Albany has a 27.6% vacancy rate. We've owned that building. We're staying in downtown Albany. We believe in downtown Albany with all the issues. We're there. And so we believe in it. I got involved with this particular project with Lynn a couple of years ago, in riding my bicycle from Buffalo to Albany. I saw what water did to all those towns along the way. And if you've been to Fairport or Brockport or any of those towns, Seneca Falls, people love water. When we got to Albany, down by the boat launch, there was nobody there. There was nothing happening. You've got maybe 400 people saying, is this really the capital city of the Empire State? Now, my wife said, don't be negative, so I'm not being negative. But the reaction was different than every other place we've been. And that was difficult. So what we did is we started on a mission. We formed, I've got some handouts here. I didn't think about it ahead of time because I knew where your eyes would be. But in the handouts, you'll see who our board of directors are. You'll recognize probably every name. Pam Howard from the Historic Albany Foundation, Paul Grondell, former chair of this group, Ray Kenley, and there's a number of other people who you'll recognize. Chet Opalka. And so we're there. So in 2025, the Advanced Albany Alliance, thank you, Tom Owens, gave us $85,000 to study Lot 1. And that's what these reports that we've done for each of you here shows what that study was. We hired Clough Harbor, we hired an architect, We went and studied other cities around the country, including Providence. Has anybody been to Providence? And seen how water has transformed Providence? We looked at Buffalo, we looked at downtown Syracuse. There's another piece over here in Syracuse I urge you to take. Transform downtown Syracuse by adding water, basically opening up where the Erie Canal is in. So we looked at all of that. We found out that it was economically viable. We found out that when you put down water, it drives development. It drives people, it drives visitors, residents, and so it all works. Then we did a video. So we had the beautiful, talented Benita Zahn, we had Mayor Dorsey, we had the president of Capital Bank, sorry, Mike, I didn't.
No, it's okay. I was out that day.
Yeah, and we had Pam Howard, and we did a video, some of you have seen it, we had a symposium on November 1st over in the State Museum. That came out very well. We've had a lot of reaction to that. We have about 1,200 people who signed up as Friends of the Waterway. They have been lobbying the MEGA group. The MEGA group is a group who basically was consultants to the governor in order to create what are we gonna do with all. So they came back and they lobbied very hard with them. They wrote very talented letters. They weren't just cut out of paper. And basically that group came out last Friday and said Lock 1 is on our radar. So our ask today, which we'll talk about when Lynn gets through, but our ask is that you get involved. It's going to be an intergovernmental group who will decide how to implement those ideas. We ask that you become very much engaged with that because you're a powerful group, you have a lot of connections, and you believe in Albany, or you wouldn't be sitting in this building. So with that, I'm going to introduce Lynn Tantillo, who will run through what we've been thinking about. Thank you, Jane.
Thank you all for having us here. It's a great opportunity to talk about this project. Probably many of you know that I'm an artist and I've been painting historical subjects for over 40 years. This is a map that the Dutch drew of Albany in the 1630s. What's this? Oh, that's the map. There it goes. This is a painting that I made from that map, working with historians, other scholars and archaeologists. This is the way Albany looked in the time of the Dutch. This is Albany in the 1740s. This is Albany in the 1790s. This is Albany in the 1860s. And all of these images were inspired by these maps. And they all had one thing in common. They all had this arc of shoreline. The Hudson River in Albany was almost twice as wide as it is today. That's how much has been built in. From the early 90s, I've been collecting all the brochures that I could get my hands on that had to do with revitalizing Albany. And I have a whole collection of them. All of them, some of them were very modest and some of them were very ambitious, but they all had one thing in common, and that is none of them transformed the city. They improved it, but it didn't transform the city. So I was thinking back then, all 30 years ago, what would happen if instead of trying to move the city out to the Hudson River, if you put the Hudson River back into the city where it once was? So I made this sketch multiple times, showed it to a lot of different people, and eventually it got to the newspaper. It made headlines in 1996. Governor Pataki commented on it, Mayor Jennings commented on it, and from that I was given a modest sum of money. I put together a small team, there were 4 of us, and we came up with this plan. The idea was to bring the water in from the Hudson River at the south end, bring it through to an inner harbor in front of the D&H building, and then down Broadway. The whole north end of Albany 30 years ago was undeveloped. It was mostly swamp. There were no parking lots. There were very few buildings there. We had a criteria that we had set up for ourselves, and that was don't disturb the highway, don't take any ramps down, and don't tear any buildings down. So that was the result of our work. This is the total idea, but we had broken it down into component parts. Instead of building it all at once, you could just concentrate on a few areas. One was the south end, where the SUNY headquarters building is now, and the other was the north end, which was the location of Block 1. The Block 1 area is something that is a very important part of Albany history. This is what the lumber district looked like in its heyday. The lock itself is right here. The canal basin is where the barges were kept until they were weighed. This is a detail of it. And I included this slide today because this month is very, it's a milestone for us. 30 years ago, in May of 1996, the idea of restoring Lock 1, excavating it and restoring it, connecting it to the Hudson River was first presented 30 years ago. So it's taken us 30 years to get to this time. And it's fantastic. I can't even believe that it happened. This is what the lock looked like, Lock 1. This is the area where it's located. You probably recognize Central Warehouse there. The idea, the way it could evolve in the lock area is that Central Warehouse is going to be removed. The land that the Modern Press is on is going to be acquired. The area around that will then be converted, restored to its original Lock 1 and canal basin. And we'll hopefully be able to add the Waylock building, a beautiful historic building that was a big part of the function of the canal when it was built. These are artist sketches of what that area could look like if it was developed. This is what the Waylock looked like. And so we had, thanks to the Alliance, we had the opportunity to really dig into it, to try to figure out, can you build it and how much would it cost? So to that end, with the money that was awarded to us in a grant from the Albany County Alliance, we engaged Clough Harbor to do just that, to figure out, could you build it and how much would it cost? So this is Clough Harbor's plan. They felt that $57 million would make the connection to the Hudson River. An additional $67 million would be needed to build the marina. They put in a huge contingency of $87 million and came to a total of $211 million to restore the Lock 1 area. The SUNY Plaza was another area where we devoted some attention. The idea here is to connect an inner harbor to the Hudson River via a lock. I think when you look at this area, it's very interesting to note just what happened out here along the shoreline of the Hudson River. This is an aerial photograph that was taken in the 1950s, and the original Albany Basin is still in parts still there. In the top right corner of the photograph, this whole area right here is all railroad, and the railroad had most of the property along the river. But beyond the railroad, as you went out into the Hudson area, there was a pier built called the Recreation Pier. And on that pier was the Albany Yacht Club. And the Albany Yacht Club was a beautiful building on a beautiful site. It was extremely popular. There were all kinds of events in the Hudson River back in that time. Races, all kinds of events. This is what the harbor, Albany Harbor, looked like then. This is how you accessed it. This is what the recreational pier looked like. On the right photograph is the pier in its heyday with the yacht club in the background. And on the left side is the beginning of the end of it. This is what it looked like in the fifties, and this is what it looked like in the sixties. It was completely destroyed, filled in, covered over. The yacht club was removed, and in its place, the highway came through. So both of these photographs are from approximately the same angle. So that's the area where the yacht club and the original Albany Harbor was. And if you look closely at it today, there's still a corner of the original block still there. So what we have been thinking is Albany had a marina, you can see the size of it. That possibly you could take that idea and recreate it on the other side of the old D&H building in approximately the same scale. If that were to happen, this is the way Broadway looks today. Broadway could be transformed into something like this. This is an area of dining and seating that would be alongside the SUNY building, looking across the harbor at downtown Albany. This is a boater's view. We know that at one end of that design, according to Clough Harbor, it had to be maintained at a shallow depth because of utilities that were under the ground. So that area would be a reflecting pool with a display of water fountains. And that would be the general change that would occur. This magnificent building that's just waiting for something to happen there. Something a lot more than what's there now. Something that would really attract people to this area. So, could you build it? And how much would it cost? Again, we had Clough Harbor. They estimated $55 million to connect it to the Hudson River. An additional $42 million to build a marina and a reflecting pool. Contingency of $54 million, $151 million total to build the Albany Harbor Marina. So we have two ends of the system, the Lock 1 area and the SUNY Plaza area. Together, those two projects would total $362 million estimated. We know that $635 million is going into the construction of a new Livingston Avenue Railroad Bridge. And we're only talking about this bridge because of the comparative cost. If you compare the bridge cost to the cost of building these two water features, you can see that the water features are far more affordable. And not only that, the railroad bridge doesn't actually contribute to Albany's regeneration the way those two water projects would. So we know that in other parts of the country, this has been a big success. Oklahoma City has a 1 mile canal coming from the Oklahoma River to downtown. Providence, Rhode Island, most people know that Providence has a very successful canal. Millions of people attend water fire there. Ottawa, Canada has had a canal for ages, and they use it all the time. This is what the Rideau Canal in Ottawa looks like at Christmas time. And this is how the Canadians use their canals in wintertime. San Antonio, a lot of you have been to San Antonio. You know how popular that is. Chicago has its canal. Closer to home, Buffalo has Canal Side, which PJ mentioned earlier. This has become a very popular spot in Buffalo. Syracuse has its own canal harbor restoration, which they use year round. It attracts a lot of tourism. So closing thoughts. That is $1 million in $100 bills. That's $100 million. That's $360 million. That's the estimated cost of the two water features. That's $650 million. That's the cost of the Livingston Avenue Bridge. And that's $2.4 billion, the estimated cost of reimagining 787. So you can see how the waterway compares to these other projects in terms of its costs. Going back to the Bricktown Canal in Oklahoma City, this is a really interesting project. It's a mile long. It cost $24 million to build it in 1999. And they raised the funds to build the canal by increasing their sales tax by 1 cent. And they paid for this in a very short amount of time. So a couple of years ago, they conducted a survey. They wanted to see the impact of their $24 million investment on the economy in the Bricktown area. And what they found was their $24 million investment is yielding right now $1.4 billion per year. So it's been a real boom. It made national news. And it's become kind of a model for other projects. So what DJ and I and the Waterway Group are planning on doing this year is we've taken a hard look at the Bricktown Canal, and we think there are some features of this canal that would work here in Albany. We know they work there. So again, here's the layout. On the right-hand side is the Oklahoma River. There's the 1 mile stretch of canal. But the way it works is interesting. The entrance is, you come in off the river. There are some docks there for boaters. You travel up through a channel to a headwater, which is just basically a mooring spot. And from that mooring spot, you would depart your boat, whatever your boat was, and you would walk up a little incline to a landing area. This is the landing, and you would board a water taxi. And the water taxi would then depart and take you on this 1 mile excursion through this redeveloped Bricktown area where there are shops, there are museums. It passes under highways and under roads. It meanders around movie theaters and shopping centers. There are 2 amusement parks along the way. And it's for everyone. That's the coolest thing about it. It's for everybody. If you have 15 bucks, you can get a pass to take this water taxi all day long. There are seasonal passes. So this is a very public system that services this community. It narrows out in some places, it widens out in some places. And these shallow bottom water taxis take people that whole distance. So we have our system that was designed all those years ago. We have our SUNY Plaza, we have our Lock 1 idea. And what we're going to be looking at, studying carefully is, can we build a water taxi system like the one in the Bricktown Canal that would join those 2 areas and bring water right through downtown Albany? So we're hoping that maybe one day Broadway, the way you know it, may become a very different kind of place. Really kind of bringing the city into more of the flavor that you find in cities that have water features. So I'm going to close with a couple of pictures. The idea of maybe what our Albany water taxi might look like, and a painting that I did 30 years ago of what, the waterway might be in front of the old D&H building. So that's the program.
So before we dive into questions, I did just want to quickly announce two of our other special events this morning. In addition to you, we did have a member of Mayor Claire's administration, our Director of Intergovernmental Affairs, Liz Maria Penn, join us this morning. And we have an esteemed member of the press with us from the Albany Business Review, Chelsea Diana, over here. So just want to make sure to introduce all of our guests.
So I think we're probably taking up enough time of yours, but if you have questions, do we do that or you want to just skip that for now?
Over to the board, questions?
I just have a comment, which is, I think it's amazing that you've like stuck with this and have this vision, and it's very exciting to think about, but I really appreciate, I know it's all volunteer time, and I think you guys are really doing great work.
Thanks. Thank you.
You know, the thing about this, when the governor announced her $200 million for downtown Albany, she asked for bold, impactful projects. This is a bold, impactful project. It's not putting another building up. It's not redoing Townsend Square, for example, or whatever. It's actually something that will bring people in. I chair the Slater. We have 20,000 visitors come every year. It's the biggest attraction in Albany. They come from all over the world. And they say to me, where can we walk to get a sandwich in the capital city of the Empire State? And I look at them and go, well, you got a car. You drive to one. It's embarrassing to be like this in this city for so long, which is why it's so great that you're here, that you're focused on what you do. And I think it's really important. One other thing you'll see in this handout, which I encourage each of you to take these handouts, is look at this. You're a professor, you know how this works. Anyway, DOT did a study, and they studied Lot 1. And they said there's 3 options. So you saw the numbers that Lynn put up. They said there's 3 options. One, you can uncover the lock, and it's about, I think it's in the book, you'll see it, their study is there. And that's like maybe $5 million. And we believe that once something starts and people see it and there's enthusiasm about it, then it's gonna happen. So I would say, don't be like taken aback by these numbers, because there are ways to attack each one of these issues in small bites. And that's really, really important. The second thing is that unlike Williams Emery Bridge, which we're all good for that's great. But unlike that, everything that we're proposing has a return on the investment. You saw the Oklahoma City return on investment, that happens. If Lot 1, and again, it's in the governor's Friday afternoon piece, if that happens, you will see a lot of development will happen around that, and it will, especially with Central Warehouse gone, and you will, and hopefully the marijuana store gone. Jim McCoy's committed to getting rid of that, by the way. I'm surprised it's still up, but anyway. But as that happens, you will see a lot of development that will occur, that will drive dollars into the city of Albany, the county of Albany, and the state of New York. So, and it will bring a lot of people in. We need people on the streets, and this brings people on the streets. So we are more than very appreciative of you having this. I know a lot of you have been through this a couple times with us, and it's great. So thanks. And any questions?
I want to add one thing. There's something that's potentially very exciting that's going to happen in the next few months, if we can pull this off. We've applied for permission to do an excavation of a portion of Lot 1 that's under a lawn area. We have 2 professors in our group who are archaeologists who originally excavated the lot, and they're putting together a team of students to dig there this summer. So if that happens and they actually do find what we're looking for, I think it's going to be an exciting time. I think the public will really want to know more about an idea that could happen there. So I just wanted to add that.
Okay. Like I said, we believe in Albany. We live here, we work here. I've got a big building up the street that depends on our success. But in any event, aside from that, thank you. It's been really great.
Thank you.
Well,
You want me to move on the agenda? We're still alive, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is the report of the Finance and Investment Committee.
Yeah, so, our chief financial officer is on medical leave currently, so for the agenda item today, we're gonna just focus on the procurement, policy revisions. We discussed those at the January Finance Committee with council. Council, if you wanna walk
Yeah, sure.
through those.
So, each year on our compliance calendar, and it's also required by law, we review the, certain policies, one of which is the procurement policy. We've made changes to this over the years, increasing the numbers to try and, account for numbers that were probably dated. So that's what we've done the past few years. What you see before you is really more, just editorial comments. There's not really substantive, material, in my view. It does, remove a few references to statutes that have now changed. And so we don't, basically as a local development corporation, we don't have to reference certain sections of the general municipal law because we're not what's called a municipal corporation. We're a non-for-profit corporation. We're also a public authority, but we're not a municipal corporation. And that's as a result of certain case law. So those are the changes before you.
So I would entertain a motion and then we can discuss. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make one.
Thank you. Discussion. Questions? We have a second? Right, if there's no questions or further discussion, we can vote on resolution 1-2026. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Motion is adopted. All right. Do you want to do this now or?
I think so. Anne Marie, could you pass that on?
Okay, so we do have, I guess it's from the nominating things with them or?
Yeah. So we have, historically, you know, we have, a board seat, based on our close relationship with the city of Albany. We've typically offered up a board seat, for the mayor to make a recommendation of a candidate. So you'll have in front of you a resume for the deputy mayor, Christopher Ellis. So what we're reviewing this morning, is a potential nomination and appointment for Christopher Ellis to as Albany board seat. Would you like to?
Yeah, I mean, certainly the city is our biggest stakeholder, so it wouldn't surprise anyone, and historically, we've had a member from the city administration, be a member of our board. So that's, again, very common, under our bylaws, and we do have a vacancy in the board of directors, and under our bylaws, the board of directors can fill that vacancy. And that vacancy would be filled until the next members meeting, which is, as you know, at the end of the year. So this vacancy would be filled through this calendar year, and then if that person wanted to, and if the board wanted to nominate that person, then they would be nominated for what's called basically a normal term of 3 years moving forward in December. But this would fill the vacancy through this calendar year. That's the person that's been nominated, or presented to the board for their consideration.
So I'll move, the nomination of, Chris Ellis Jr. As a representative of the city of Albany government to serve on the unexpired term of the board.
So that's a first and a second. Any discussion?
So I would just say, I know Chris personally, really highly competent, a great person, I think would contribute a lot to this board.
I'll say the same. I've worked with Chris in the past, X ways and means, so.
Yeah. I think he's got quite an impressive resume.
Yeah.
So any further discussion? All right, let's vote on the nomination of Chris Ellis to join the board. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? No, okay. Excellent. So we will move on to the report of the executive staff.
Sure. So obviously there was a big announcement on Friday, the state's announcement of the downtown Albany strategy. So we did include a link in your board memo to the strategy. I encourage you all to review it if you haven't already. We're not gonna focus extensively on review of it this morning. But of note, Liberty Park is obviously a high priority within the strategy. Liberty Park is that section starts about page 34 in the packet, so about 4 pages there. So please review that critically. And then later on in the document, there is discussion about the funding pools that will be available through this initiative. So there is 3 pools. One is the $120 million transformative projects fund. That's to support a limited number of catalytic projects that change downtown's trajectory by significantly boosting residents, jobs, and visitors, improving market confidence and enabling follow-on private investment. That includes up to an estimated 40 million for Liberty Park. So an incredible commitment to the success of Liberty Park and its future, with that up to $40 million in that transformative projects fund. And then the next sort of bucket there is the $40 million housing investment fund to unlock housing delivery by providing targeted grants to close verified gaps and move projects to construction, bringing more residents and vibrancy to downtown. And the third pool is the Community and Public Spaces Investment Fund to invest in people-centered projects that improve public spaces, strengthen commercial corridors, and build lasting community assets. I know a number of us were included in a stakeholder briefing on Friday afternoon to walk through top level the details of the strategy as well as the pools and then next steps moving forward. So I would just call your attention to, the next part of the process would envision short-term and intergovernmental delivery team in the next few months really to implement projects and get projects in for funding. And move them forward. The middle term goal of this strategy is quote a single front door for economic development. And the longer term bucket there is a broader cohesive city county structure that is potentially on the table. I will note that the strategy said if those types of collaborations once we're working through the near term process, that those collaborations are really fruitful and folks, it lends itself to getting support in that angle, but just calling attention to the fact that short term, midterm, and long term trajectory is in the strategy as well. Really amazing plan, incredible to have this commitment to downtown, and we really look forward to being able to move projects forward and help implement this strategy. Any questions from the board on strategy or otherwise?
So, yes. So I think we need to have our own strategy with respect to each of those 3 components. So I'm just wondering what our process is going to be to do that. This is super exciting. This is that tailwind that we have been looking for and that we need. But it's dramatically impactful both for the city of Albany, but also for Capitalize. So I'm wondering out loud, are we gonna have a special meeting or what is our process to complement this process?
Yeah, I think we would start with working with the mayor's office and talking through next steps as far as leading this initiative and moving forward with project review. In the past, when we've done things like the Downtown Revitalization Initiative, we've pulled together the team of stakeholders. We've started having those meetings and really having folks talk about specific projects and talk about where there's overlap and where folks can come together and identify those points of partnership. So typically that's kind of been our strategy, has been the convener to be able to get everybody in the room together and identify how we can best implement the projects and then what ones Prior to that, we would obviously have to have a session of like what ones we feel like Capitalize Albany could be best able to support directly, and then what ones we could be a partner to other projects for.
So, I guess it's more of a question about project origination. Versus just supporting. Because this is a bold vision, it's a balanced vision. It is multifaceted, multi-location. So it's not necessarily that there's a pool of existing projects already waiting to be catalyzed or to be supported. I think we really need to be proactively catalyzing projects. Can you kind of comment on do we have thoughts on how we would approach that?
I think there is a pool that has been waiting for funding, but yes, both things can be true, right? So there is a number of projects that are on the table, or, you know, real estate deals that are happening live, that if funding is available through this type of process, those can actually be pulled together and, you know, made to happen. But also, yes, you know, looking forward, what are those catalytic things that maybe someone hasn't brought up, and generating those ideas, and being able to make them happen. Yes, that can happen too.
And to Michael's point about what our strategy is, there was one bullet point, and I didn't read the whole thing yet, but I saw something about a 3-to-1 match in private investment. I think that is probably the area where I would like to be most focused and proactive on, and like, what are we going to do to start generating that type of commitment into downtown Albany, because that's a key component.
Yeah, it's definitely been encouraged that, you know, this is just the starting point, right? The state has been very vocal about the fact that private leverage is expected to, you know, commit to this as well.
So probably a question for Anders, but we have a Liberty Park subcommittee. Is the scope of that subcommittee going to be morphed to encompass this, or is there a different structure? And again, I'm not expecting an answer. I think we've got to talk to the chairman about that and see how he wants to handle it. But again, I view this as a tremendous opportunity, and, you know, that suggests activity or action on the board's part as to how we're gonna react to that.
Anders is on the line. I don't know if he has any commentary on the Zoom. We wanna.
Michael, can you hear me?
I don't put him
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
spot, but I hear God up there.
I just didn't know if he was gonna try to talk and be muted.
Ashley, in addition to the projects, the catalytic projects that you said are in the works, I'm just curious, Michael, do you have some thoughts about how we might approach mining catalytic projects?
Well, I mean, generally, you know, there's always a need for the trusted entity to be the interface between different stakeholders, New York State investment, the private company, and then maybe other elements of it. And so I'm wondering, you know, to facilitate these projects, because I think I'm interested to hear if there's a thought that we would be playing that role of trusted entity.
A thought from who? Leadership of Capitalize
Yeah, from
Albany?
you.
I think we 100% should be playing that role of the trusted entity that is, you know, working with partners to develop project ideas and concepts, and also pull together the projects. You know, the ones that we know that are in the pipeline that need critical gap funding to make them happen, but have dedicated partners, you know, ready to implement. But yes, we should 100% be playing that lead role. We are the city's economic development entity. If we didn't, what are we doing here? So yes, 100%.
Hey, Ashley, can you hear me?
Yeah,
You can hear me? So
yeah.
I think that's great. I think absolutely the value of our corporation is to be the interface and the intersection
and the connectivity between the private sector, the public sector development, and removing the brush that allows people to pursue projects, to achieve their vision, to create a vision. And I think we need to do that. It's very, very hard, I think, for the private development community oftentimes to navigate this myriad of public layers. I think one thing that the plan it states is that there needs to be direct coordination, collaboration, and specificity about how people enter this portal and engage in this process. And I think we need to work hard to define what that means and what our role will be. And I think we're at a critical process. Obviously, you have the Albany Alliance with some significant projects in downtown Albany right now between Central Warehouse and the Convention Center, which are wonderful projects. And we need to make sure that we engage in a very positive way to be a proactive point. And I think we should start, to Michael's point, I think organization really drives some of this. And we need to evaluate our committee and make sure that it can pivot to a point where it goes from a planning more to an implementation and an engagement process. This opportunity is tremendous. It's really significant, and we need to position ourselves absolutely to maximize this potential for the city. I think the governor is it's been very forward and prominent about supporting our downtown, and she's created real dollars dedicated to that. She has a vision for Liberty Park and a vision for many of these focal areas, and we should organize in a way that allows us to do that. We need to think about that in a way, we have so many, a challenge of the way our board is structured is that we have a lot of people conflicted out of Liberty Park right now. And we need to make sure that we are able to engage in a positive way, both on the Liberty Park with the respondents, but also broader throughout the city, through the city broadly. So we're doing that. I think having the deputy mayor joining the board will help us kind of align with the city, and we could speak with one voice as an advocate for the city. This is the city of Albany. This is our downtown. We are the city of Albany's economic development agency, and we will be active, forward, and prominent in this process. I've had multiple conversations with ESD and others from the administration, and we have been reinforcing that, and we have, I think, support of that initiative. So I don't know if that gives some sense of perspective, but that's my view at this point.
Thank you, Anders. So how do you want to proceed?
So we will talk with council about how best to approach governance on next steps related to subcommittees and things like that related to the board. We'll also be working closely with the mayor and her team about next steps on this. But definitely dive in deep, get familiar with it, and we're gonna roll up our sleeves and move this forward.
So there's there's nothing else on the agenda other than other business. Is there other business?
Yes, there is other business. So one quick thing of note, in the board materials, we did include some guidance from the authority's budget office with respect to executive session. I think New York State ABO did recently release a report regarding executive sessions and detailing sort of the sampling of public authorities that had held executive sessions and reported on stats related to it. So this is just a general reminder for folks of the reasons why we can enter into executive session, and I'll leave it to council to elaborate on all of that.
Yeah, I mean, this is another reminder. They looked at 549 instances of executive session. There were 2 where they thought we could have been more specific in our reasons. They didn't say they weren't the right reasons. For example, when we go into session to discuss litigation, they would like us to name the litigation. They then have a footnote that says, if we think naming litigation will put us at a disadvantage, then we don't have to name litigation. So there's that. And there's also, technically, when we go into, and you'll hear me say this, seek and obtain legal counsel, that's not executive session per se. That's not even a meeting. Once we go to obtain and seek legal counsel, we're completely out of the open meetings law. So it's actually closing the meeting and talking to counsel on something. So they said we could identify that better. So we will. So those are the two areas that they suggested, and we'll follow their guidance.
Any questions? Is there any other business?
Yes, so on the note related to executive session, I would recommend that the board go into, call a motion to go into executive session with respect to acquisition or disposition of real property, the publicity of which could substantially affect the value thereof. Onward.
But we have a motion, motion second, Michael. All right, all in favor? Aye. We're going to.
I'm afraid to walk out. You don't want me to send this to the business or?
We would prefer.
Live recording.
I don't know, do you? want to send it?
All right, now,
And it's not fun.
do you live now?
Yeah.
Okay, we're out.
Yeah, Terry, thank you.
We're out. Out of executive session.
Thanks. Take care.
We are now going to adjourn the meeting, and we will see everyone at the next regularly scheduled meeting of the Capitalized Lottery Corporation, which is Tuesday, March 24th, and Saturday, I will be here.
Any motion and second?
We can't, if there's no.
Well, that's right, no power. Yeah, we lost, yeah, okay.